Hey guys, this is Justin. Hello and welcome to another video. We're once again taking a look at the Halo TV show, this time episode 4. And I gotta say, I feel a little silly now after my last review where I was probably a little too optimistic about the future of the show because I found this episode to be a huge letdown. If someone would have told me before the show started that by episode 4 we'd have Master Chief in front of his childhood home, standing without his helmet on, digging through the ground with a shovel for a Forerunner artifact, I would have either thought I was being messed with or at least prepared myself for just generally not liking the show. And like I said last episode, we started to see some positives. I thought at least episode 3 was probably my favorite of the series, besides for the first 10 or so minutes of episode 1. But wow, things really feel like they're going off the rails here. First of all, let me talk about some of the things that I like, because I do try to be positive about this show. I'm going to continue watching it even though this episode left a sour taste in my mouth. First of all, I really like Pablo Schreiber, and I feel like it's unfortunate that this version of Master Chief is probably not going to be nearly as popular as any other version. I think Pablo could have done even better as perhaps another Spartan who doesn't have the same baggage as Master Chief, and I've been thinking more and more that maybe this show, if they wanted to do it diverging from the stories, could have benefited with Master Chief taking on a role as he did in Forward Unto Dawn. Then you still have a charismatic and interesting Spartan who you can show off without making people frustrated or angry that he's not behaving anything like the Master Chief that we know. Either way, I also like the character of Halsey, and not just the actress, but just how the character is shaping out. I think the little monologue at the end of this episode was probably a bit too heavy-handed, but Halsey is pretty evil in this. It's a good version of the character. She's pretty in line with how she appeared in the expanded universe material of the original Halo timeline, so that's pretty good. Other than that, I guess some of the effects continue to be good. The Covenant weapons in this that they were holding looked good, but there's really not a whole lot else I can say about this episode. This was maybe a money saver. It does seem like next episode, based on some very early previews, is going to be one of the big action ones with the Covenant attacking the Forerunner dig site. And I will say I'm also happy that we continue to get references to the expanded universe. Admiral Whitcomb, I believe, was the one mentioned in this. Can't remember exactly which character. Planets are usually ones we know. There was a reference to the Cole Protocol in episode 3, all that stuff. That's great. All right, so that's the bit that I liked. Let's talk now about what I didn't like. And this, unfortunately, for this episode especially, is a much longer list. First of all, the show's biggest issue so far is that it's completely failed to establish the Covenant as any sort of meaningful threat. The UNSC and humanity is supposed to be under fire, on the brink of extinction, and Master Chief and Halsey are out in the field slowly digging up the ground. It's not good, and all we've seen from the Covenant now are limited battles. We haven't seen them glassing planets. We haven't heard talk about the state of the war and how humanity is being pushed back. That's a fundamental aspect of the original Halo series, and it's just such a shame that it's not being played on right now, because I think that this sort of existential dread that is always over humanity works so well in Halo's expanded universe, and it's something that really should have been brought to screen, in my opinion. Even with the other changes, this is something that just comes down to bad directing. They're not giving enough time for the actual major conflict to get attention. Instead, they're focusing on these boring interpersonal stories, and I think there's probably nothing more boring in this entire show than the insurrectionist subplot with Qua and the Spartan. Like, I just don't care. I don't care about what's going on in Madrigal. Madrigal is one planet. The characters who were the center of it were killed in the first 10 minutes of episode 1, and I don't think that the conflict between the UNSC and these insurrectionists is nearly as interesting at this point as the UNSC versus the Covenant. I don't care who's got control over this small little desert planet. I don't care that the UNSC is putting in these cruel administrators. It's just so far away from the story that I want to see, and at this point I think Qua's motivations are just becoming sketchier and sketchier, like less well-grounded in any sort of logic, even within the universe, and even from the perspective of someone who's grieving the loss of her father. Also, I said Qua the last 2 times. It's Quan. That is my mistake. I'm not one who likes to point at a show for wasting time or for putting in filler episodes. especially when characters are being developed. I think The Mandalorian showed that these so-called filler episodes can really pan out when that character development comes to play, but they could have achieved pretty much everything that happened in this episode within 10 minutes. I did actually like some of the Chief stuff. I thought looking back to his childhood was good. I still don't like the lack of nuance they're using when handling this topic. Instead of Chief being brainwashed by military conditioning, he's literally been brainwashed. His memories have been altered. I just don't think that's as interesting as someone who's been through the system instead of having a chip put in their back. Maybe unsurprisingly too, now that there's a second Spartan who's taken her chip out, it seems to be even more clunky. Like, the payoff's not there when the Spartan's been this way the whole time and they take a chip out and suddenly they've changed, rather than experiences changing them, which is what we got in Halo 4. It's just a lot more interesting. Anyway guys, that's all I have for today. I'm probably going to do a further discussion of the series up to this point, but especially episodes 3 and 4 tonight on Tapcaf Transmissions. We may also talk about Lego Star Wars. It might be a split episode. Either way, I am planning actually to stream this one on my channel, although I don't usually. Just a reminder guys, if you're not already following Tapcaf Transmissions, which is my podcast, you can do so by clicking the link down in the description. You can either watch on YouTube on Corey's channel, which is Corey's Datapad, or listen to Tapcaf Transmissions on Spotify, iTunes, or any other platform. Anyway, until next time guys, be safe, have a good one. Let's hope episode 5 is better, and may the Force be with you.